Okay, thank you so much, everybody. So Rochel is going to speak for us. Actually, so it's going to be one of the last times for a long time. Actually, Rochel has other commitments. So we are so grateful to have Rochel, and thank you, Rochel. Thank you for everything that you literally have done. I think it's the last year. So we're looking forward. Go ahead, Roch. Are you there?
Yeah, do you see me?
Yeah, perfect.
Because I don't see me. That's weird. Usually I see you.
We see you perfectly.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this is going to be the last time for a while. I'm just going to continue a little bit from last week. We discussed last week the menorah, the one base, the heavenly image and the earthly image, which was Yaakov, and the purpose of publicizing the nace is not so much for the Parchemen, but rather to reveal that the Shechina is back. Every time we light a candle, we are saying that we are bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu back into our lives. Really, the nace was the battle, was the milchama, because it was a few in the hands of many. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because of the love that he has for us and for the human initiative of the Maccabees, the Chashmonayim, he allowed them to find the Parchemen. So today we're going to delve into the Parchemen. Last week was the menorah. We ended up with the beautiful story of the Bluzhever Rebbe, the concept of being able to see. That's our whole Yiddishkeit, seeing, or Isa Moso, that he was able to see the eyes, the yearning eyes of light, of desire, the essence of their soul, wanting to do the mitzvah, where the other Jew didn't see that. And that's what Hanukkah is about too, to be able to see the light in the darkness. Like we said, Rav Soloveitchik doesn't necessarily say it dissipates the darkness, but it's the ner ha'ma'or merachok. It's the light that twinkles, that we're able to follow it. It guides us. It directs us. It actually warms us. So today we're going to talk about the Parchemen. The Parchemen, which is the olive oil. So first we're going to ask, why dafka? Is it olive oil? Why not canola oil? Well, my sister would never go for canola oil. It has to be dafka olive oil. And why oil? Why not margarine? And that's what we're going to discuss, the essence of the olive oil. The nace was revealed to them because of their human initiative to battle the Yevonim, to be moser nefesh for their identity, their kedusha, their tahara, their oneness. Now, if you look at the common denominator to both victories, the victories of the Chashmonayim and the victory of the Parchemen, we actually see two common threads going through this. The first is Mesiras Nefesh, and the second is Eichus versus Kamos, quality versus quantity. The few won over the many, and the tiny jug of oil was able to light 8 days. Really, they could have used shemen tameh, halachically. It was totally mutter for them to use shemen tameh in the Beis Hamikdash, but they opted not to. They searched and they searched until Hashem made them see the Parchemen Tahor. Why? So Chazal used the beautiful lashon, Lo hadir l'Yisrael chibas Hashem aleihim, to show them the love that he has for them. So we can say that the Parchemen is the symbol of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love for us. It was a sign from above that the Shechina came back, and that's what we publicize. It is the crown. Oter Yisrael b'tifara. It is my crown, the crown of glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was a nes b'toch hanes. It was the quality and not the quantity. I found something so interesting, absolutely amazing. The Meshech Chochmah brings down in Bamidbar, Derech Birkas Hashem, the way of the bracha of Hashem, Ba'a, comes, B'Sefer Panim Yafos, when the bracha of Hashem comes to us in a happy face, He po'eles be'echus. That's amazing. When bracha comes, it usually comes in the quality and not the quantity. Why? Lefisha birchas he'echus nisgeves yoser. Because in God's eyes, the quantity is on a much higher level the quality is on a much higher elevated level than the quantity. And Rashi proves over there in Vayikra, there's a pasuk, Perek Chafet, pasuk Yotes, that he says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is promising them that even in a small quantity of food, they will be satisfied. That a small quantity will be a bracha. And he goes further in something absolutely amazing. By the Chet of Mei Meriva, when Moshe was told to speak to the rock, and it's amazing, I must have taught this 1,000 times, I never saw it. It says, Dibarta melasela, I want you to speak to the rock, Natan meimav, and it will bring forth water, and then Hotseisa lehem mayim minasela. That's it. It's all it says. However, after Moshe hits the rock, all of a sudden the pasuk changes. It says, Vayetzu mayim rabim. Much water came from the rock. So the Meshech Chochmah says, whoa. So if you speak to the rock, which is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, it doesn't mention riboy mayim. It doesn't mention the quantity of water. It doesn't mention how much water, so much water. It just says, Hotseisa lahem mayim. Only after he went against Hashem does it say mayim rabim, because not necessarily do we see bracha in the quantity, in the riboy. It's not always a siman bracha, but rather riboy mayim was a result of his chait. So we learned from here that birchas Hashem comes from the eichus and not the kamus, from the quality and not the quantity. The nes of the Pach Shemen was a sign that showed Bnei Israel that the milchama, the shemen, are all from one foundation, which is what? That ikar ha'echus shegavar al hakamus, that the quality is what was misgaber over the quantity. Why is that important? Because that leads us to the realization that it's not kochi v'otzem yadi, that it's not all about me, to show them that the war was not natural, that it was like it says on Alanisim, b'rachamecha harabim. It was because of your rachamim. The nes of the Pach Shemen, the Pnei Yeshua says, listen to these words, was binyan av lilmod mimenu shehanitzachon haya miyad Hashem, because it was quality versus quantity. And that's really an eye-opener, because we think the more we have, the bigger bracha it is. If I have more, then, that must be, I'm really blessed. Not so. The Pach Shemen says, that's not so. The bracha is not in the riboy. The bracha is in the quality. The bracha could be in the fact that it is so small, that there was a little tiny jug, that there were few in number that fought the Yavanim. The bracha is where, in the little, where we see that it's not kochi v'otzem yadi, that it's really all HaKadosh Baruch Hu who gave it to me. The Haraya, we can see it in society, that sometimes you take people who had nothing and all of a sudden they have riboy of everything and they begin to change because the bracha is not in the riboy. So why dafka was it given through the menorah? The menorah, the parchemen, was actually the weapon, so to speak, the kli zayin, which channeled the koach of the Shekhinah into the physical weapons of the Maccabees. So now let's discuss shemen. Why shemen? It's actually amazing because if you take the word shemen, you'll get your answer. Yes, of course, the nace was with shemen, but why shemen? So look at the word shemen. There's so much meaning in the word. Shem, name, neshama, soul, neshima, breath, shmona, 8, shemama, desolation. Victory of Hanukkah was the victory of the inner over the external. The Yavanim wanted to take away our name, our shame, our neshama, our neshima, the neshima that God breathed into each and every one of us. They wanted to rid us of the inner, the essence, all of that, our name. When we go upstairs at 120, God's going to ask, did you live up to your name? Meaning, how did you reveal your neshama? How did you use the neshima that I gave you when I created you? We use oil because we're bringing back that essence, the pnimius. The oil is the hidden essence of the olive. The soul is the hidden essence of who I am. Shemen comes from the word shmona, 8, not a coincidence. 8 is the level above 7, which is lamala min hateva. Rav Bachya says that the number 8 is involved in various aspects of the Beis HaMikdash service. There's 8 different kinds of spices in the Beis HaMikdash. 8 poles carried the vessels. There were 8 musical instruments. And we see in our lives, number 8 is very important. 8, bris milah, 8 threads of tzitzis. The number 8, Maharal says, is symbolic of the life of a Jew by which he can raise himself towards Hashem once he reaches the level of worldly spirituality denoted by number 7, then he can aspire to a higher level symbolized by number 8. So the shemen is symbolic of how high I can go every time I light a candle. The oil was used to anoint the kings, to anoint the Kohanim, to anoint the Kalim in the Beis HaMikdash. What does oil do? It penetrates deeply. It is a remedy. It penetrates deep, deep, deep. The oil penetrated deep into the essence of the Kohen, of the Kli, of the Melech, in order for the Koach to come out. And what happens with oil? It rises to the top. It retains its individuality. It retains its characteristic, but it comes to the top. And that's why they were anointed with oil. That's the oil. We also have that ability. We also could allow the light to penetrate inside of us so that we too could rise to the top. We have the ability to be like oil and to penetrate into somebody else's soul and to allow them to rise to the top. So why dafka olives? Why an olive? There's other kinds of oils that we can use. Why an olive? So the first thing we have to understand is the olive tree was the only tree that was not destroyed in the time of the Mabul. Also, the olive leaf was the symbol that there was light after the Mabul. And we have to understand that the victory, like I said before, of Hanukkah was the inner essence over the external. of light over darkness. If you look at an olive, it's very small. Its outer appearance is really very misleading. It's not the prettiest of fruits. However, this tiny little fruit, inside of it, has the most unbelievable oil that can light an entire room, that can be a refuah. We know that olive oil is a refuah. And look how much light it can give. That is an unbelievable remez, that when we look at that little olive, we begin to realize and to think that there is so much hidden light in so many different places that needs to be revealed. It reminds us to look beyond the little tiny olive that looks like a nothing, to beyond the superficiality of the world, beyond the mask of the darkness. And interesting that the darker the olive is, the more light it contains, the richer the oil. Sometimes also we have to be patient because it takes time until the oil comes out. So in order to get a better understanding of all the darkness that we see, we sometimes have to be a little bit patient. But we all have the ability to reveal the hidden light in ourselves, in the people around us, in society, through mitzvahs, through a chesed, through good deeds, through a smile, through a thank you, a hello, a good morning. I'm going to go off topic for a second. I teach in a school this week, I guess because of Thanksgiving. I was so blown away. They decorated the hallways, and the girls lined up on both sides of the corridor. And it was a 10-minute appreciation for all the janitors and the people who work there. And each janitor that came by, they announced his name. They gave them a shout out, high five if it was a girl. And at the end of the line, they gave out presents. I can't begin to tell you what these people's faces looked like. The girls literally revealed and uncovered the oil, the light in these people's lives. The olive gets crushed. And then when we crush it, we see the beauty, the beautiful, yummy, rich oil that comes from it. What is crushing? Does crushing mean I'm going to crush you? It's true, because I'll say that we are like the olive oil. We are. Sometimes we have to get crushed in order for everything to come out. And yes, we are oil. We rise to the top, but we retain our individuality. But what really does crushing mean? Crushing signifies humility, knowing where I stand, who I stand in front of, know where I come from, know where I'm going, know where it all comes from. That's my humility. Crushing is all crushing all the stuff that's in the way that doesn't allow the oil to come out.
Okay, I'm coming to good.
Sometimes I need to do that. But let's dig a little deeper. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. We go back to the pasuk Vayivater Yaakov Levado. Yaakov crosses the Yarden, and it says he remains by himself. And Chazal take the word Levado is lichado. He goes to retrieve his pach shemen. So yes, simple plain pshat is that for tzaddikim, it shows us how little things are so precious to them that they will go across and there will be most of their nefesh in order to retrieve their possessions. He sacrifices, though, something of himself because he knows that he's going to have to use the pach shemen later on. He gives up something, his safety, in order to be able to use this oil later on for a Kodesh Baruch Hu. The Medrash tells us that when Yaakov took out the oil and he put it on the rock, he woke up the next morning and he found that the pach was full. He understood that the place that he was standing in was mizuman lebracha. Pach shemen represents mesiris nefesh, going beyond my comfort zone to do a little bit more for Hashem. The Yavanim wanted to take away Torah Shebial Peh. Torah Shabbat Pes Mesiris Nefesh. It's not easy. Torah Shabbat, all it says is be Shomer Shabbos. That's easy. I'll sleep all day. Torah Shabbat Peh goes into the details. It's much harder. It's to be Moser my Nefesh, to go a little bit out of my comfort zone, to do things that may not be so comfortable for me, things that may be a little bit burdensome or troublesome, whatever it is. Moser Nefesh, Mesiris Nefesh. He woke up and he saw that this place was a place of bracha. So far we see that the Pach Shemen has inside of it the inner essence. It has bracha. It has Mesiris Nefesh. It has so much more. But where was the first time that we ever saw about Pach Shemen? Shemen Zayit Zach. Where was the first time that we saw the element or the commandment of olive oil? In Parshas Tetzaveh, Kodesh Baruch Hu looks at Moshe and he says, "V'yukru elecha shemen zayit zach kasis lemeor." It's so interesting. So Chazal say this is a hint to Hanukkah because it's written after the commandments of Sukkot. The question that the Nesiv Shalom asks, it's what's the connection between Moshe and the Shemen Zayin Zach? What is that? What's the connection? So Chazal bring down that every Geula comes in the schus of another Av. The last Geula is supposed to be in the schus of Moshe. Why? Who was Moshe? Oh, Moshe was the one that understood how to bring out the essence of each and every person. His name is Moshe, Mina Maya Mishisihu. From the Mayim, he was pulled up. But his name and who he was really reflects his essence. He was able to pull the oil from the olive. He was able to actually bring light, to show them the light. It's called Ha'aras Da'as. They were in Choshech. He brought them the Torah. The Rochel says that Moshe brought them the Torah, which opened up their eyes, which gave them clarity, which made them see, which made them feel the connection to the Shekhinah. Moshe was the man of light. When he was born, it says that the mother looked and saw that there was light on top of his crib. There was or. She saw there was or. The or. What is the or? It's a beautiful Rashi that really gives us a little bit of a hint into who he was. When the Yidden began to complain that they didn't have meat, they wanted to go back to Mitzrayim, they don't like their man, they don't like this, they don't like this, they don't like that, he couldn't take it anymore. Sefer Bamidbar. I think it's Perek Yud Aleph. And he looks at the Kodesh Baruch Hu, he says, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't have meat. Where am I getting meat from? And I can't take care of them all by myself. I just can't do this. You got to give me some help. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, fine, I'll give you help. I'm going to send you 70 skenim. You're going to all stand there together by Ol Moed. And I'm going to come down. And I'm going to take a little bit of light from you. And I'm going to give it to all the 70 skenim. Now, if I was Moshe, I would say, that's not fair. You're going to take from my light and you're going to give it to them. What's going to happen to me? So Rashi says something beautiful there. Nothing's going to happen to you. Moshe hayado melanir. Moshe was like a candle that was munach al gabe menorah, that was on top of a menorah. What happens to a candle? You take light from one candle and you're able to light the other light and the other light and the other light. Nothing happens to the first one. The light never gets diminished. That's what Kodesh Baruch Hu was saying. I want the essence of who you are to go into that Shemen Zayit. That Shemen Zayit that's going to be used to illuminate the world and the people and the Beis Mikdash, to light the menorah, your essence, the essence of who you are, that you're able to take from your light and you're able to give it to the next person and the next person, the next person, the next person. Nothing happens to your light because you do it. You do it in a way of Sever Panim Yafos. And Moshe was the greatest of them all. You can say that he was the olive that was crushed. Meaning what? Why was he able to do that? because he represented the crushing of the olive, the humility, understanding who I really am. I'm great, but it comes from the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Understanding that it's not the quantity, but it's the quality. Understanding that whatever I have, it's not kochi v'otzim yadi. That's why he was able to do what he was able to do, and that's why that was the connection between Moshe and the Shem and Zayit Zach. So, Bnei Israel are also referred to as a Zayit. The Medrash tells us that when the olive gets beaten and produces oil, we also get beaten and produce oil. And not only that, when we produce oil, we become a new creation. We're brand new. And with that new koach, much light can be produced. The Zayit, it says, is davar chadash u'metzius chadasha. Beautiful words. Every Jew has the ability to bring so much light. There is a hidden koach deep inside that olive. The outer shell of the olive, when it's removed, the real koach comes out. That's Hanukkah, in a nutshell. Excuse the pun. When we light our candles, we're really revealing our true essence. We're bringing the Shekhinah back into our homes. By the Pesach Habayis, we close the door. The mezuzah is on one side saying, please, 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 protect your home. The menorah is on the other side. We're bringing back our identity. We're being moser nefesh to keep our kedusha and our tahara. We're crushing the stumbling blocks that get in the way. We stand side by side as fiery sidekicks, each one of us, one light, another light, another light, another light, not worrying that I'm going to diminish my light when you become great. I'm going to finish by reading you something. And this is going to put everything that we've all learned together, and also my feelings that I have for everybody and for the fact that I was able to learn with all of you. Someone once asked, this sits on my desk, this doesn't move. Someone once asked Rav Zera, how did you achieve Arichas Yamim? Arichas Yamim doesn't necessarily mean long life. Arichas Yamim also means a life that has length, depth, detail, essence. Listen to what he answers. It's a translation, so obviously, You ask how I came to live so long? Because I was never irritable at home and never walked ahead of people greater than myself. I was not the kind before whom everyone outside lived in fear and trembling, yet who himself trembled in fear at home, even before his wife, nor was I a tyrant at home, yet the meekest and humblest man outside. I was never angry at home. I was not a domestic tyrant. My children, the members of my household, did not have to be afraid of me. I never flew into a rage, not even in my own home. And as I was at home, I was also in life outside. That's the threshold, the mezuzah, the menorah. I never walked one step ahead of anyone who was greater than I. That's the anivus. I happily supported myself in public life, even if the other party was years younger than I. That's the opposite of kochi v'otzim yadi. And third, all my life, I never considered the Torah as my private possession. I did not regard the Torah as my own personal favorite hobby. It was not my private passion. I always regarded it as divine. I viewed my study as an act of service to God. I was like Moshe, the light that had, but I was able to give it over to others without thinking that I'm going to lose from myself. And even as I stood respectfully and humbly before men, I always stood in respect and humility before the Torah, and in my own mind, always regarded it as something holy. Even as I respected every human soul, even as I respected the youngest child in our home, and restrained myself from ever giving way to anger, I was always motivated by the thought that the Torah was not the work of my hands, nor was it my business. It was my master. That's the Mesiras Nefesh. The Torah is my master. The Torah has been my guide all my life. That's the Ner Hamara Merachok, the twinkling light. Whatever I learned from it, it was to be put into practice in daily life. These ideas are imprinted upon my brain. And even as I consider the Torah sacred, I likewise regard as sacred everything related to Torah. I never took malicious pleasure in the weakness or humiliation of my neighbor and never called anyone by a nickname. I recognized every human being as created in the image of God. That's the neshima and the neshama in each and every one of us. And even as the Torah was sacred to me, so too were human beings, so that I regarded the humiliation of human being as a degradation of the image of God. Rav Zera was able to reveal the light of the Torah, the light of the menorah, the light of every single person around him. But most important, he was able to reveal the light in the essence of his soul. May we all be able to reveal the true us, to bring the Shekhinah into our homes starting next week, to be able to take light from ourselves without feeling that we're going to be diminished and giving it over to the next person and the next person. May we all look as Torah as our master. Torah is not a subject. Torah is our guiding life. Sometimes the things that we're commanded to do may be uncomfortable for us, but we do it because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do it. We do it because really that's the neshima that he breathed inside of our soul. We do it because it's the essence of our soul. We crush that uncomfortableness and say, no, I'm going to do this because the Torah is my master. Have a wonderful Hanukkah. Thank you so much for learning with me. I don't know when I will see you again, hopefully whenever. And may the learning be a schus for all of you. And again, once again, thank you, Naomi, for putting me on this platform.